Hey guys, what's up? We're excited to be here with you. What a wild, 72 hours or so that we've all had since this all came down. And we have an awesome group of people here for you. Kyle, I know you're going to need to disappear for like 30 seconds. So why don't you be the first to just introduce yourself? We're going to give you guys like 20, 30-second intros, and we're going to jump in. We've been hearing from, different brokerages and different corporate leaders. We're out here like running deals on the ground. And so we're going to discuss how we are going to attack this on the day-to-day, which is the task we have at hand. And we're going to help you with as much as we possibly can. Kyle, kick off the intros, man.
For sure. So I'd love to have each of you just chime in really quickly because we got 1 hour of time. We started on time. We want to finish on time and respect everybody's time who is here on time. So I'd love just maybe a 1-minute intro, who you are, where you're at, what your production was, last year, this year. Why should people pay attention to you? We handpicked each one of you guys that's on here for a reason. I want everybody to know who you are and why they need to pay attention today. And again, our goal today is not to just tell you what the lawsuit is. Like, go read all the documents and all of that stuff. Your broker should be explaining this to you. I know our broker or our chief strategy officer with our brokerage just finished a live stream explaining it all to us. So hopefully your broker is doing the same thing. If they're not, I don't know, maybe you want to think about that. But your broker should be explaining what this is. We're going to explain how we're all looking at this thing as team leaders, how we are looking to adapt, and honestly, how we see opportunity in this change. So I'm just going to go in order of how you guys look in my Hollywood squares here. So Dylan, fire away.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Stoked to be here. My name's Dylan Nonaka. I'm on the big island of Hawaii. I run the #1 team in the state of Hawaii. So we're on all 4 Hawaiian islands. We did a little over 600 sales last year, and we are heavily buyer-centric business. Like 65% of our business, we're internet lead generators. And so this is something that's near and dear to our hearts. And we've been actually leading into this for a couple of months now. So we're definitely ready for it, and happy to share some thoughts on this.
Kendall, go for it.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Kendall Bonner. I'm in Tampa, Florida, also a team leader. I'm, my claim to fame, and I guess why I was invited here would be, I'm a former broker of record who had a brokerage for 10 years, training agents on buyer brokerage agreements and buyer agency for that entire time. Also, I'm a Florida licensed attorney for over 20 years, and I run a mid-sized team here in Tampa. And just started just over 2.5 years ago. And in those 2 years, we were able to go from 0 to over 200 sides, 80 million in volume. So very fast growth in a very short period of time. And that's without me being in production. I was just teaching brand new agents how to serve clients, get listings, work with buyers, and get the job done.
Awesome. Tina.
Hey, I'm Tina Call in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been in this amazing business for 24 years. Was a solo agent for 14 years, actually moved markets. So came to Raleigh about 12 years ago, got up to selling about 130 homes a year, and then launched my team. Now we're about 48 agents. We did 800 transactions last year, 400 million. I'm out of the day-to-day, but I feel like we've been through so many of these weird shifts. So I'm excited to be here today to, pour into people.
Awesome. Mr. Kaufman.
Kevin Kaufman here in Tempe, Arizona. It's our base, and really the majority of our production is here, though we do still sell some real estate in Denver, Colorado, as well as addition to the Phoenix area. Run a team of about 12 agents, do about 250 transactions this year. Got a business partner, Fred, and we've been preparing for this or something like this for a long time. It's actually been part of our practice as far as the way we, what I'd say, consult versus present. So I'm actually really excited for this opportunity that we have as an industry.
And Veronica.
Hi, everyone.
My name. Intro. Go ahead. Introduce yourself here quick, and let's go. Let's jump in.
Hi, Veronica Figueroa from Orlando, Florida. I run the FIG team. Any given day, a team of 50 or more agents. Been in the business over 20 years. I guess my claim to fame, a little over 2,000 homes sold in 1 year. Heavy listing team, but also a very heavy buyer team. So been doing this for a long time. So I'm excited to dive in.
Cool. And with that, Leo, you're the last to do an introduction right behind me, just coming off of a lot of people just watch you, by the way. There were about 46,000 people watching live at one given point in time. So in fact,
48,000. That's
the Chief Strategy Officer at eXp Realty. I'm going to give you that quick intro there. You were the #1 agent in the country at one point when you were in production. So
I was #1 in the world at Keller and #5 across all brands at one point.
Thanks for joining us here. And quickly, guys, I'm Dan Beer in San Diego. Over $3 billion worth of closed transactions, all here locally in San Diego. Point being is this: we're going to get off of ourselves. We just want you to know that we're coming from the place where we are realtors. We are real. Like this is what we do. Okay. We are in it every single day. I'm sitting in a real estate office. So are all these people. There's agents right outside my door and window, and we're solving these issues right alongside you. The thing I'll tell you right out of the gate, we don't have every answer because no one does yet. Leo on the call understands the actual settlement maybe better than anyone in the country. And so it's so good that he's here with us. But the question I want to kick this off with is, with what we do already understand, and guys, the feel here is, like Kyle and I were talking about, we're just pretending we're like at the fire pit over at my house. We're just having a conversation, a few thousand people looking in. And if we were at that fire pit, we'd be talking about opportunity. And just quickly here, I'll mention, because Leo, on yours, I was watching the chat. It's amazing how the comments from people like, hey, this is horrible. This is that. Like all the negativity is unbelievable. But here's the thing is like, you get to be right either way. You think it's horrible, you're right. You think there's opportunity, you're right. And you could better bet that this group's going to be focused on opportunities. So if that's not your jam, this might not be either. But it's just interesting to watch people kind of opt in and out or opt in a certain mindset, right? When they're both free, why not pick the better one? So anyway, guys, as we look at this, if we were sitting having a drink at my fireplace, like what opportunity do you see in it? Where do you see that the winners that are wired well up here are going to roll, are going to go? What are they going to be looking for? What would you be saying? Tina, Kendall, Dylan.
I mean, I'll just say this. I think I have been praying for this for a long time because the industry is about to get better. The buyers agents are going to have to get better at demonstrating their value. So just like I was always heavy listing, sitting with a listing agent, they're interviewing me. What can you bring to the table because I'm paying you? Buyers are not going to just be willy-nilly. The looky-loos are going to go away because they're going to have to start their conversation with, Dan, why should I hire you over Kyle? They're actually going to be discerning, and they're going to look at us with our value at the forefront, not just door openers anymore. That's my take.
I agree with you. I think that this is going to help improve the level of professionalism that we have in our industry, which has been long overdue. I was last week in Ottawa, Canada, speaking at the Ontario Real Estate Association conference. And, they do 2 or 3 things that I think are super powerful that I think have raised the level of professionalism. One of them being they recently made buyer representation agreements mandatory. I think this is an absolute necessary thing for our industry to improve the whole experience for both consumers and agents. It's going to protect against getting ghosted by clients without communication. It's going to protect against agents saying, hey, I'm a relative of the consumer, and just call the agent in Tampa, have them show you the door, but I'll write the offer. Just don't tell them that I'm going to be handling it for you. It's going to protect them from this. I think it's important that we remember that we need to bend so we don't break. And that's what we're being offered, is an opportunity to be a little more flexible in a way that can, and I understand there's some uncertainties, which creates fear and doubt. But I will remind you, there's no courage without fear. There's no bravery without fear. We have an opportunity to brave a whole new world. And I really do think that if anything goes negative going forward, it'll almost be our fault, because we have the opportunity to have a cleaner message. We have the opportunity to lead. We have the opportunity to set a standard in our industry, even as team leaders and brokers out there in the marketplace, so that consumers know where to go. So brand new agents coming into the industry can know how to do things a little bit better than they've been doing it before. Because the reality is this, no other industry on the planet where a brand new person into the business gets paid the same as someone who sold hundreds of homes. That is how we got here, right? And so the fact that we do that is one of our problems. And the other problem is that we are not in control, especially on the buy side, of our compensation until now. And we should be happy about that. And I think those are good things.
I love, yeah, man. Just you dropped a few things actually, and I've never heard someone say this from this perspective, right? Like what I think you just heard you say is, hey, did it ever make sense that someone that doesn't really know what they're doing is going to get paid the same for representing a buyer versus some, right? Like, because if I hire an attorney who's a rookie, that's not the same rate as the partner at like a top 5 law firm. Different rates.
Correct.
Yet in our industry, it's about the same.
Worse than that, Dan. Like, I'm just going to interrupt you. It's worse than that. Think about this. You call a surgeon to get a surgery. You will get 3 different quotes for that surgery. Not to mention, if you call a surgeon in your local state versus, hey, I'm going to fly to California to have this surgery done, or to Alabama or wherever to save money, but you are going to get multiple quotes. We're the only industry that not only will you call in the same city and get the same rate, but you'll call across state lines and you get the same rate. Like, that is a problem. We brought ourselves here. That's my opinion. But we have a chance to bend and not break for sure.
I think, Dan, what we saw in those comments, we were all talking offline before about the comments that we saw on Leo's YouTube stream, which was amazing, by the way. Leo, thank you to you and Holly for doing that. What I saw was chaos, and I forget exactly who said it, probably Dan Sullivan, but chaos creates opportunity. And at the end of the day, anybody on this Zoom, anybody who's here watching this with the intent of how am I going to shift my business? How am I going to look at this strategy wise is going to win. Like, if we all sat here on the Zoom and acted like we have the answers, the truth is we don't. As of today, we have more questions than answers, and that's totally okay. We should all feel comfortable that way. In fact, Dylan's the only one on this Zoom that I don't know personally, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you, Dylan. The reality is if you built your business this big, you've been at that point before, probably multiple times. The reality is there's just going to be another separation. There's going to be another separation of the people that choose to buy into the chaos, and for those of us that'll choose to buy into the opportunity of the chaos.
Like with what you said, Kendall, there is also, there's 2 ways to look at it. One is, well, hey, I'm new, but no, I deserve them. So like there's entitlement that you might have to deal with. But at the same time, what is cool about this is you could be as new as you want to be. And you actually can be paid more than anybody here.
Yeah.
If you professionalize yourself and train yourself up and take steps. So now it's just a merit-based industry. Now, people that don't want to be in a merit-based industry are going to hate it. And in fact, we might have seen a lot of them in the comments a moment ago with those, on that YouTube. But if you're like any one of you to get to where you are, so newer agents, I'm talking to you right now, you want to be like the real deal. You want to be Tina Cole, so to speak. You want to be Kevin and Veronica and so on. I promise you that when they were you, they would have salivated at the opportunity of knowing that, like, just watching the weak mindset of what was going on in those comments. And we're not celebrating that in that we want people to fail by any means, but we do want our industry to be great. And the cool thing is you get to choose. 100% of you could choose to be great or not, or some amount in between.
Hey, I want to talk about that from a data standpoint, Dan. So, the folks that are basing this whole thing in fear and are really worried, I think, are not looking at the overall picture in terms of what the marketplace looks like. And I've been coaching up the team here on, don't assume that your buyers are broke and they cannot compensate you, because that's the assumption, right? Is that, oh my goodness, I'm not going to get paid because I'm a buyer's agent. And so I would encourage everybody to go dig into your MLS data and go look at the past 12 months of closings and see there's going to be a segment of the market that we're going to have to deal with, where they're the low down payment and no down payment type programs. And I can tell you, in our market, it's 12% of the overall market is a USDA, FHA, or VA loan, right? So we're talking about 88% of the market is somebody who is paying cash. About half are paying cash, and then another 38% are paying with some type of conventional loan where they have a significant down payment. And so if you're going into this in the mindset of people can't pay me and they're all broke, that's completely the wrong mindset. There is a small segment of the population that we're going to have to deal with. And in most cases, the way we're framing it with buyers is sellers are going to continue to compensate a buyer's agent. That's just going to be the reality because they understand the value in incentivizing the buyer's agents in their market to come and show their property and market their property. And so there is going to be a small segment that can't, and we'll deal with those on a onesie, twosie basis, but don't base your whole entire world off of the fact that you believe that you can no longer be paid by a buyer, because it's absolutely not the case.
Cool. Where I want to go with this, Leo, if you can real quick, give us just like a 2-minute summary of what you just did for a full hour for the brokerage. And then I want to dive specifically. Yeah, and then I want to dive specifically into tactical stuff, because I know that that's what people are here for. Like, what are the changes we're making? What are we saying to our teams? How are we preparing for this? So Veronica, I'm going to come to you first on this, but Leo, just give us a real quick Cliff's notes of the brokerage level version, and then we'll dive in.
Yep. First thing, blanket offer of unilateral compensation is being deleted. So we can no longer have like I said it in the presentation, but this is a great example. If something's listed for 500,000 and they're offering 3%, you can offer 450, you can offer 4.25, you could offer 400. You're still getting 3%. It will now be negotiated as a concession. So all pieces of the contract will go into that consideration, right? So that's the biggest distinction. That's distinction number one. And the other one, if I just had to sum it up in two, is you can't open a door without a representation agreement in place, right? We have two different things that we interchange, and I interchange them sometimes in my own vocabulary. One is agency and one is employment. And, you know, Kendall and I have these conversations because we both like to geek out on this stuff. What most of us participate in is agency. I would venture to bet that some huge number have no employment, right? Like actual broker representation versus agency. So that's the distinction, and that's the opportunity, guys. I completely agree with you. And, you know, as I saw the negativity, I actually have a lot of empathy, because when we sent out that email on Friday that came out from my personal email, I got hundreds of very terrified people, and rightfully so. Like the rug being pulled, I feel blindsided. Like, these are the actual phrases people used with me over the weekend. And so, like, I'm actually excited because I want to put my arms around you guys. It's going to be okay, right? Market shifts. I think it's value proposition, it's phraseology, it's how we show up. We do it for listings. We've not once argued about this for a listing. We're just adding the exact same value proposition to the buyer, which, by the way, is twice as hard. NAR stats say it's about 40 hours to do a listing, but it's 80 hours to do a buyer. I'm very confident asking to be fairly compensated. If you want me to put you in my car for, I don't know, 6 to 8 months and consume my gas and do everything else. And if you don't want to do that, fine. It's going to be, you know, flat fee plus $50 a showing plus $2,500 deposit. We're going to see it all. And at the end of the day, we're going to see what's efficient, because it's capitalism.
Awesome. So Veronica, I'm going to start this question off with you, and then we can just go around the fire here. A buyer calls in, right? You, as much as anybody, work with companies like Zillow, and obviously they're great partners for many of us on here. And there's tons of other amazing companies out there like it. So you get a buyer who calls in and it's like, hey, Veronica, I want to go see 123 Main Street. Traditionally, first thing we do, Zillow obviously has proven this model of ALM, appointment.
ALM, yes, we delete.
Right, just get the appointment and go, basically. We call these go and show appointments. Like, how does that change? How do you see that changing for your team and just the industry as a whole? Because now it is required, before we show a single home, that we have a buyer representation agreement in place. So how does that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still all very new for us. As you guys know, I am the queen of optimism, and I love to lean into opportunities. And we've already been having conversations on the team. Of course, we have a little bit of time, right? But Leo said it best. We're going to start operating as if it is already in place. And, you know, of course, we have partnerships with Zillow, and we're still waiting for those calls to see, you know, how, you know, that may be forward facing on the portal, to which I think I've read comments like flex is over. You know, if you were a Zillow agent, you're dead. I've taken bullets for a long time over these type of partnerships, but I think it's a matter of proper education, educating our consumers. I miss the buyer consultation days. Like my conversion when we got to sit with a buyer and legit sit, explain the benefits, explain the features, explain the knowledge and what we're going to face. I miss those days. And we would lock in buyer representation agreements all the time back in the day before the speed to lead, where you had to like pretty much, pardon my French, like pimp yourself out to the industry. I'm excited that we're going to give buyers agents a little bit more power, a little bit more respect for what they do. I've actually talked to my team. I'm leaning in like, we're going to get through this. This is going to be a good thing. And of course, we have to perfect. We have to make sure we package up our value proposition, articulate the value and our.
Like that. She's gone. Dylan, take over, because you're also big in working with companies like Zillow, where you get a lot of buyers that just come in and want to go see a house. How do you see it changing?
So one of the things that's going to be easy for us to implement, and we've already been coaching on this to implement the buyer's representation agreement, is our value proposition that we've been working on building for years. And now we're at the point, if you're a buyer that's interested in buying real estate anywhere in Hawaii, we can show you property anywhere in the state in 40 minutes, right? We have agents at every single island that can make that happen. And so if you're a sophisticated buyer who wants high-level representation, high access representation, we can provide you with that. And that's what just we're leading into, is continuing to communicate that from the agent perspective, and then also communicate that you don't have to rely on your individual agent's expertise. We have an expert in every type of property, vacant land, short-term vacation rental, luxury. I mean, anything you could possibly need. So if you're a buyer and you have specific needs, you don't have to worry about that random agent that you just meet on the internet, because we are going to be that random agent, but we're going to have a much larger value set to provide them so they feel comfortable committing to some type of representation or some type of compensation at the end. Because if they compare, 3 different agents, there's going to be a clear difference in the kind of service they're going to get if they work with us.
Kevin, when they interview 3 agents, what do you think a buyer is going to be looking for? Do you think somebody's just going to sign an agreement just because it's who answered the phone? Do you think they're actually going to sit down and talk to 3 agents? If they talk to 3 agents, like, what are they going to be looking for when they're talking to those agents?
I think at the end of the day, they're going to look for who can convey their value the best. That's in alignment with what they as a consumer think that they're looking for. And the reality is, as we all know, not all consumers do know what they're looking for. They come in usually with a set of preconceived notions that they may have, especially if it's a first-time home buyer. But the reality is they're going to be looking for someone that can clearly articulate, here's what I do for you. Here's why you hire me. Here's my, if you will, going back to this is like basics. Like, we're going back to the unique value proposition stuff. That's at the end of the day what this is. This is, I think, ultimately a good thing. It's going to force everyone to slow down and do that. Unfortunately, a lot of us, even in our own industry, see ourselves as our value as just opening doors. And so if we're going to survive, whoever chooses to survive, you're going to have to be able to convey, maybe for you, it's your negotiation. Maybe it's identifying those off-market properties or those very special properties. Maybe you specialize in a unique property type. Whatever the case is, it's going to be unique value proposition. And more importantly, the communication of that unique value proposition.
Well, and Tina, you've been nailing this for a long time. So the average buyer commission in your market in Raleigh is far less than your team has been collecting on average, I believe, is my understanding. So walk us through that. What's the process behind that? What would be a mini little, 4-minute training around what do you guys do?
Well,
How
I
do
think,
you capture more commission on the buyer side now?
A couple things that I want to touch on. So first, our agents were sort of like scratching their head when this all came about, because they were like, well, don't we do this anyway? Like, we get X%. Like, they're used to getting 3 or 4% because our market is 2% or 2.4%, or we have a lot of new construction. So a lot of our builders are like, we're not paying you guys. Okay, well, we need to figure that out, because if I consult with my buyer and say, if you go to the builder's working for themselves or the agent's working for the builder, this is the same thing. It's just educating the buyer. And so our agents are used to saying, well, we do 80, 90 deals a month. we are the Sherpas that can navigate these situations because we're better trained. We have more boots on the ground. So we have more intel, we have more information than the average agent selling one home a quarter. I'm going to guide you through better. I'm worth 3% or 4% versus this. So if the seller doesn't compensate me at this rate, then you're liable. But here's the other thing I want to say. The consumers have already told us what they don't want. They didn't want open door. Open door, you click a button, you go walk inside the property as a buyer, and then you can negotiate for yourself. I mean, you know, Purple Bricks. Hey, we're a 1%, we're a flat fee, we're Redfin. All these flat fee brokers have been around forever. Since I started 24 years ago, you can go navigate this wonderful, very litigious environment yourself. It is an option today. You can sell your home on your own, but the consumers are telling us what they want, and they want us, but they're just going to say, I want you to be better. I want you to be better. So I think that it's when we sit down with our agents, Dan, back to your original question, it's what is your buyer presentation? Here's the value that I contribute to you. And here's post value. Here's after the transaction's complete. I think a lot of us forget that the relationship starts after we close. What am I going to do as a service after? Here's how I'm going to connect with you after. Here's how I'm going to update you on your whatever happens after. So I think it's, again, just thinking about that concierge service. I know I'm worth X% more than a brand new agent or more than a seasoned agent that sells 3 or 4 homes a year. I'm worth that. So I think this is a mindset problem more so than a big industry problem.
One of the other things that already can happen today is there's a lot of people saying, well, isn't every buyer just going to go straight to the listing agent? And so buyer agency's dead. They're going to go straight to the listing agent to save the money. That can happen now. That is some buyer's mentality now. And that it hasn't really been a problem. So like that is not new. A lot of it isn't new. And actually, much to your point, Leo, getting a listing agreement signed, we're just doing what is so normal to us on the seller side. On the buyer side, there are some logistical differences though, right? Like the sign call that comes in, the open house visitors, like navigating that is a little bit funky.
Because there's like the state of Maryland already requires you to disclose agency, like at open houses. So there's a posted sign. It's either in the window or at the front. And again, that's where I think the size and how operationally excellent we are is such a like warm blanket for our people. And for the folks watching who are not with us, good time to join us, because like I did our earnings call a couple of weeks ago, and I said last year was the year of operational excellence. I've been obsessed with making sure that the process of being at a brokerage is excellent, right? I want to pay you faster. I want to get you broker feedback faster. We have more, like, look, there's the as I affectionately refer to them, our little bootleg bunch of wannabes, but their agent staff ratio is appalling. We have more staff to support you, to answer these questions, to prepare these documents, to walk you through that if you're a wannabe cloud brokerage with 100 to 1 agents to staff to agent ratio, it's about to get weird out there.
Can I make a comment? I wanted to add, one of the things that I hear both on this call and around the globe all the time is this conversation about value proposition. And I agree, but I think we need to go a little bit deeper into that. And I want to say, because a lot of agents like, well, what does that really mean? And so for me, the thing I want to make sure agents listening to this call understand is the new value proposition is customer experience, right? And customer experience is all about communication. It's about understanding your contracts. It's about being a resource. It's about understanding the details of the marketplace. It's about providing education. It's about your market knowledge and just all the other things that you bring to the table. It's all of those things and more. It's your skill set, right? We've got to get better at communicating all those various things that we do in the transaction to help that customer make a wiser decision. And that's how we remind them how we are valuable to them, because it's more than taking their calls and returning their phone calls. It's more than just, I have access to properties. It's so much more than that. It's that overall client experience, including also the technology we bring to the table, right? the fact that we provide specific technologies that allow that consumer access to more than they would from another agency or another company or in front of another broker is a part of that value proposition. I think sometimes we forget to communicate and articulate to our clients, and that's going to become more powerful than ever. For example, one of my friends who, again, I'm going to refer back to Ontario Real Estate Commission, because, a lot of times too, we keep trying to compare ourselves to Australia and some of these other systems, right? And I said this last year on the Inman stage. Why are we comparing ourselves to systems that are already broken, right? Who actually wish they could be more like us, in fact. But I will say this, Ontario Real Estate Association, they are moving the needle forward. They are someone we should consider mirroring. But one of the things that they do there is, in their listing agreement, they literally list out all the things that they do for the seller in writing on the listing agreement, like in detail. This is an opportunity. We can do the same thing on the buy side, is list out in detail all the things that we're going to do, what technology we're going to provide, what our communication schedule will be. Putting that in writing gives transparency and clarity of all the things that we're willing and open and going to be doing for them, that then we get to be held accountable to, which is, again, raising the bar on professionalism and also setting the stage. I know someone in the comments wrote from my comment earlier about we're not doctors and we're not attorneys. No, but we handle transactions that operate the largest economic model, or the largest economy in the world is real estate. Okay, so the fact that we are not required to get educated like doctors and lawyers is also tragic. In Ontario, California, or Ontario, Canada, they have to go through 2 years of education to become a real estate professional. Their membership dues and their annual fees are closer to $5,000 a year, as opposed to in Florida, it's about $1,000 a year. I mean, it's significantly different to raise that bar. So, and again, I'm not trying to compare us to doctors and lawyers from that perspective. I'm just saying what we do matters. It's important and requires professionalism. So that's the point I'm making in that. But I think, getting more detailed about the customer experience is going to be key going forward, and providing, as team leaders too, that cascading effect of customer experience too is going to be important as well. And broker.
I love the doctor lawyer thing. I don't know who's averse to it. Actually, the way I built my career in the early days, just to wire myself differently, is as I looked at the various things that realtors would do, which, your natural inclination at first is, well, that's what the person in my office is doing, maybe I'll do it. Was I would filter it first through this one question: would a CPA, doctor, or attorney do what I'm about to do? Would a CPA, doctor, or attorney send out like cookie recipes? And I'm not saying cookie recipes are bad, and plenty of great careers have been made on cookie recipes. But for me, it was just simply a line I drew in which I started to say, like, I'm going to behave like that much more professionalized industry. In fact, my entire home selling workshop is anchored around, the psychology of my workshop is anchored around the amateur nature of how easy it is to get licensed, et cetera. And so it still might be easy to get licensed, but we are going to have to do a ton of education once already inside. And we as an industry have to decide, like, I think if I would have gone to a major Facebook group a week ago and said, hey, should we become more professional? Everyone would have been like, yes, 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 yes. I would have gotten 3,000 comments saying yes. Now everyone's worried about the fact that we have to get more professional. I think everyone should be really happy about it if you meant what you said in the past.
Right.
And to the practical thing that we need to implement, agents that are listening to implement in regard to Kendall and Dan's comments are, what are you doing to communicate your value proposition? Because you can do it one-to-one, and you have to be able to do that at a table across from a buyer. But if you're not reinforcing your value proposition by displaying it on social media, online, in your blog, on YouTube, you're missing the boat in terms of, that's the first thing somebody's going to do. Is you do a consultation with somebody, they're going to go look you up online. And if you have nothing online that reinforces what you just told them or expands on what you just told them, you're going to be at a disadvantage against the people who do. So really think hard about that. If you don't like being on video and you don't like being on social media, you're going to put yourself at a huge disadvantage, because the people who are smart are going to instantly go to Instagram or to YouTube and see, are you who you say you are? Do you have reviews? Do you have interviews with past clients that are reinforcing what you're claiming is your value prop? And so really focusing on that, and you got to evaluate that as being part of your business.
Now, we have a couple technical questions I want to get out. One related to VA. Another, Leo, I don't know if perhaps someone else on the call has the answer to this. Maybe you, Kendall. By the way, if you didn't know, Kendall is also an attorney. Is or were? What's accurate? Which one is?
I will never give up my license if I can help it.
And so, Leo, I'm curious here. When we're looking at the open house visitors, the sign calls, and you might not have the answer yet, but I'm curious, when they say that we're going to have agency to be able to show those homes, right, or to entertain that showing from that sign call, what kind of agency?
Yeah,
because there's a very big difference between agency to show that one house to that one person in that one moment, or exclusive agency.
So, yeah, a couple things. Let me hit the VA first. So I literally have a voicemail into the director of the VA because I happen to know him. And there could be very clear clarity, right? Like the language we're going to actually encourage starting tomorrow. And I didn't even put it, I didn't edit it because I showed you what we've been using for years and years. But when you ask for that concession, I would encourage you to say seller to pay eXp Realty X% on a successful transaction, or flat or dollar amount. Because I would argue to an underwriter under the VA guidelines today that that's what they do. I'm not asking for seller credit to the buyer side of the closing statement, the settlement statement. I'm saying the sellers to pay eXp Realty, because that's what happens right now. Pull out a settlement statement. That's what happens. And again, I'm waiting. As soon as my boy calls me back, I'll tell you guys. But I want to know if that's acceptable. And guess what? If it's not, and this affects veterans, my assumption is they're going to adjust it quickly or give us guidance on how to do it. And then the second question was, Dan?
What kind of agency, right? Well, for the open house visitor, for the sign call, what's the requirement? Because there's different types.
What we're actually drafting as we speak, and these are the three that popped into my head over the weekend, and I'm open to, what's really cool is the feedback loop, right? Like, I love how flat the organization is. I don't think people understand how engaged we all are in leadership with the agents out in the field who have direct access to us. But what I dreamt up over the weekend, and I'm feeling free for feedback, is 3: low, medium, high level of commitment. Like, for a lot of you are in the ZillaFlex mastermind I run with you guys. Like, that is the lowest level of commitment, because it's speed to lead and speed to appointment. That's actually how you're all graded. That needs to be a one property, expires at close of business. That could be a different fee than if you're schlepping them around on town and spending your money and putting them gas, all that stuff that comes with it. That's hey, blind date. We're not sure if either one of us are interested. The medium level of commitment, and again, I'm just putting on my listing agent hat on. In listing agency, you have an exclusive listing fee and you have an open listing agreement. 99.9% of us have been trained to use the exclusive, but the folks that know how to do investor stuff really good, or super high-end stuff, you do open listings, right? It's like, hey, if I find you a buyer, will you pay me? The way you do that is through an open listing that is not necessarily on the MLS. What I'm drafting is an open, a non-exclusive buyer representation agreement, where it could state, and again, my goal is to make these one-pagers and get them in your hands and get feedback and have you tell me what the buyer said in the field. But my guess is it's there's that medium level, we're dating, but we're not married. If I open 123 Main Street, I am compensated if you buy 123 Main Street. And then there's we're moving in together and having children, where it's 90 days, 6 months, and you're paying me if you buy any real estate, right? So again, this is unfolding in front of us. And again, you guys know me well. I geek out on this stuff and get excited because I see a ton of opportunity, guys.
Yeah, I wanted to add this. I see this as, imagine a quilt, and what's happened is someone's pulled a string on the quilt, And as you pull a string, if you don't clip it and tie it up, the quilt begins to just completely unravel. And so what happens is what we've done is start to pull on the string of the quilt of the entire real estate industry. And as we go along, we're going to have to snip and tie up loose ends. And things like the VA buyers, things like agency are all going to be the things that we have to clip and tie up. So I do want to say this about agency. People have to understand that every state is different. In fact, dual agency is illegal in I think about 8 states in the country, right? Like in my state in Florida, we don't have dual agency. It's illegal. We have what's called transaction brokerage. So we don't have buyer representation agreements. We have buyer brokerage agreements. And all of these things matter because what state you're in also has its own rules in addition to the rules that we all have to get to enjoy that are set by, the code of ethics, the MLS, and any federal rules that we're dealing with. So we have that added layer. I know that people, for example, I saw in a comment, someone said, well, in North Carolina, you aren't allowed to talk about commissions in your contracts. Same in Florida. Well, guess what? That's one of those string pullers that we're going to have to snip and retie because we have to clean up and fix those changes that are now going to be as a result of the unraveling of what's happened with our industry through this experience. Again, a lot of uncertainty, but that's not a bad thing. This allows us an opportunity to chart the course, to step out, like I said, in leadership, and to be able to start to educate and message in a way that's comprehensive, that's collaborative. And I will say this too about cooperation. It is still in our best interest as real estate professionals to cooperate. It's no longer cooperation as regards to our commissions being tied to one another, because we can, listing agents will still be able to offer compensation to buyer's agents under this new rule change. They just cannot state it in the MLS anymore, right? So this allows for a savvy marketing agent. Like I think about Dan Beer, he's one of the agents out there, leaders in the marketing space that I always pay attention to what he's doing. He's going to get real savvy with this about how he can market his listings to buyers agents and to buyers now that there's these new and I almost say it's almost like the chains are off, because there's some freedom here now that allows us to get more creative with our marketing that we didn't have before. So I just want to put that out there. This doesn't have to all be a bad thing.
On that same vein, guys, I'm back. Sorry, but I had to do it through my phone. I love that you're saying that. And someone like Dan Beer and Kyle, right? They are definitely marketing whizzes, right? But I think what's really cool is that the way everyone's spinning this is so negative. Where Tina and I, we were talking about listings, right? I saw your message come through. Like, can we talk about how we approach the seller? There's going to be sellers that are going to say, hey, I don't have to pay buyer compensation, right? And either we pre-negotiate the compensation to the buyer, or we simply say, hey, this is my fee, but I want to open your mind to the power of buyer compensation. And whether we pre-negotiate it or not, we're at least telling them or reminding them the power of buyer agency, and let the buyer's agent let us know what their fee is, where we don't have to be the one to disclose or state what that fee is. We just have to prepare our sellers and arm them with the power of compensation and the maximum exposure, right? And if we go into these listings and saying, hey, you have the option of being that seller that says, absolutely not, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. It's our job to articulate the pros and the cons, right? It's the seller's choice. But if we say, hey, listen, let me tell you the benefits of doing it, but you don't have to decide today. When Kendall, who's a badass agent in Tampa, who I know works with great buyers, has tons of resources, is experienced, she's gonna get the job done. Her offer comes in. Kendall's going to say her, what her buyer's offer is, plus what her buyer representation fee is, right? And I'm the agent on the other side. And I'm going to look at Susie Q, who has no sales in the MLS, who has no experience, and is probably maybe pre-negotiated with her buyer a lesser fee. We're going to look at a lot of things. We don't have to settle anymore for how we were locked in before. So I think this is a huge opportunity for us to think about this differently. We still should go into listing agreements with an open mind, letting sellers know what their options are, because consumers should have options. But we, like you said, we're their Sherpa, right? But don't lock yourself into pre-negotiating, what you think the buyer's agent should get paid. let's have an open mind and let's navigate this with our sellers and educate them, and let's collaborate with the buyer's agents. But I think it's going to really determine who you start working with, like how we compensate the buyer's agent is going to be also how strong that buyer's agent can articulate to the listing agent and to the seller why they should pick their offer.
Well, and what you're really highlighting for me, Veronica, and I kind of had like this, so I don't know, it seems obvious as soon as I'm going to say it right now, but it wasn't, is that at the core of it, you just made me realize, we always talk about relationships, agent-to-agent relationships and how important they are. Well, they've always been important. At the end of the day, you were going to get paid what you're going to get paid. They might be more important now than ever. Like the actual relationships of agents and what's likely to be, and it's not our wish for it to be, but just likely to be. It's going to be a smaller industry. And I only say that because you read the negative comments. I mean, look at the attitudes on here. You've clearly chosen that it's going to be a certain way for you. When people are just in pure, all negativity, they've chosen that they're probably going to do something else. And so the agents that remain, the relationships are going to be so darn important, more than ever. It's going to make our old comments of relationships look like a joke compared to what they'll need to be now. So just a quick observation on that. One more observation I'll throw out, and then I'll turn it back over, is, there's people there's some brilliant minds on here. Academically, definitely far more than mine. Where I excel is just in really envisioning kind of what's it going to actually just simply be like. And I'm picturing these buyers who are going from property to property, from sign call to sign call, from open house to open house. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure that buyers are really the sane ones are going to want like 15, 20 different agreements with 15 and 20 different agents that now are all blowing up their phones and texting them and call. It's a disaster for them. This actually moves the buyer towards saying, hey, I actually really need to choose an agent the way a seller does today. And I like that.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
Dan,
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just really fast, Tina. I was just going to say, to Veronica's point earlier and to your point, Dan, we're going to have choices to make that we may not have thought about previously, which is when you have a seller who's refusing to do all the things required to market their property to the highest level, we'll have a choice on whether to work with them or not, right? And you'll have to decide if that's what you want to do. Same with working with buyers who are going to say, hey, I'm I only want, whatever they want, right? We're going to have choices that we need to make. But I do think this as a practical reminder to agents, pick up the phone and call the listing agent, ask them ahead of time. That's really the difference. Is before we could go online and look it up. Now we're just going to have to make a phone call, add that phone call into your process. So that way, ahead of time what you're up against in terms of the negotiations for compensation. So you can inform your buyer so they know going into a home what that's going to look like as well. It's just about being educated and on top of that and then communicating it.
Tina, why don't you go ahead and then John will come to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, same thing. Like when you think about the markets, and all of you have been in the market a long time, they're cyclical, right? So we have cycles. And so it's a supply and demand thing. So for my sellers, it's like I really have to look at all the pieces. If you're in a VA FHA market and you say, I'm not paying a commission and 90% of your buyers are VA, that is a terrible strategy. And I remember when my sellers had to offer 4 and 5% commission to the buy side transaction because we were looking to compensate the buyer more, to bring the buyers and have the buyers subconsciously, buyer agent, talk nicely about our properties. And if they're looking at 3 different properties, subconsciously want to sell our property more. I mean, there's so many factors. That's why nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But you guys got to stay nimble and look at supply and demand. And that will help us navigate the seller and buyer conversation. Because if I have an unrepresented buyer, and like V said, and I've got this kick-ass agent and I've got to take this buyer unrepresented through this contract, I don't know that that's the best answer for my seller. So I'd rather them pay a commission and have a Sherpa on the other end.
Well, how many times, and for me a week ago, how many times have you been at a listing appointment and you get to compensation, which by the way, they never had to pay any amount. Okay. They never had to pay any percent ever. But you get to the point where you're working through the compensation and you're describing how much of the compensation in the old system was going to go to the buyer's agent through the MLS. And I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience where if it were where the actual seller is saying like, hey, well, is that enough for them? Like, should we offer them more? Should we entice more agent? Like, will I be at a disadvantage if we only offer Y instead of X? I've gotten that question a lot of times. This sell, like, that's what we have to be. That's what a lot of the calm is built around, is just realizing that, like, on the other side of this thing is probably a relatively intelligent human being also.
Hey, Dan, and to that same point, I do want to echo, like, hey, even if you're a new agent, you should definitely have a very a good standard as far as what your worth is. And just because you may not have the experience, don't think that this is going to weed you out. This is where you just simply level up. Simple things like Kendall said, pick up the phone. When I was a new agent, I made sure I built relationships with experienced agents, with agents who had the listings. I made sure I positioned myself to be a true professional. It doesn't necessarily mean whether you have the most sales. This has to do with how you present yourself, because for a long time, we have experienced agents that didn't follow simple instructions, didn't properly articulate their offer, and it was sloppy. New agents, you still have an opportunity to be a successful agent and know your worth and be paid what you're worth. I simply am saying, show up like a true professional, make sure that you stand out, get out of the people pile, and you're going to be fine. Follow the lead of these leaders here and the people in your office, and leverage the mentors and your brokers and the people who are your coaches. But just make sure you show up like a true professional.
Cool. Yeah, I want to jump in here. John, I'd love to have you chime in a little bit, because I know one of the things that's really important is bringing things to the table that others don't have. Right. And we're all obviously here part of one brokerage, all coming together, right? We put the one big fire slogan on here. There's a whole bunch of us that all have these fires burning. We bring them together. We're so strong when we're together, and we all have this one unified message. But there's something that we have access to, all being a part of EXP, that literally no other brokerage can compete with. And it's a huge USP that I know we're focusing on our team internally. But I'd love for you to share that. I know some of the people on here are with EXP, some people are not with EXP. So whether you're with us or not, I think this is something that you should talk to your brokerage about if they don't already have something like this. But if you're with EXP, maybe you didn't even know this existed. Now you're going to know this existed, and it's a huge USP that you want to leverage moving forward to separate yourself from the competition. Go for it, John.
Yeah, audio okay, Kyle? Can you hear me all right? Yeah, so it's super simple, right? Buyers do not want a buyer's agent. They want houses. That's what they're looking for, right? And so if you can provide them houses that nobody else can provide, that's a gigantic advantage, right? So if I've got all the houses and literally access to hundreds of homes in Phoenix and in San Diego where I operate that no one else has access to, that is extremely powerful and compelling. And we've got all kind of other cool buyer USPs we use to differentiate ourselves against other agents. But the one that matters the most, 10 out of 10 times, is, hey, so are you interested in seeing homes that all the homes that are for sale, or do you just want to see the ones that are on Zillow? Like, that question always gets the same answer, right? Well, I want to see all the homes that are available. Got it. Well, we have access to hundreds of off-market properties. Do you have a little bit of time to sit down right now and chat about what you're looking for in a home? Yeah, sure. I'm looking for this, that, and the other thing. And then we show them all the different ways that we find off-market homes. And I want to talk about one of those in particular, the easiest way by far to find off-market properties. And I'm going to share my screen because it's easier to look at than to talk about. Make sure this works here. Here we go. Zenlist. So Zenlist is just a platform that allows you to post properties on it. And EXP has a free account with everybody at EXP gets this for free. And we're allowed to post on Zenlist all of our properties before they go to market. And this is totally legal. It complies to clear cooperation, which is probably going away at some point. But what's great about us is we can put all of our listings that are coming soon before they ever hit the MLS. So like here's Phoenix, for example, one of the markets I operate in. And you can see there's like 80 or so houses that are currently available, and they're all exclusive properties. And this is a search You know, you can go in there and search by bedrooms, bathrooms, any other thing you want. And you can pull this up right in front of a client and go, hey, look, all these houses, you cannot find these on Zillow. These do not exist on MLS. I have them here in my phone, and I would love to show you these properties. And it's an incredible resource. But here's the key is if I zoom back, you'll see that some areas like Idaho, not much going on Idaho. That's just because the agents in Idaho at EXP are not currently putting their, there's no automatic thing that does this, right? Like we at EXP have to decide like right now, we're going to be savage about this. And so all the people in Phoenix are crushing it, getting all these people are getting all their listings on before everybody else. So like me and Lauren Rosen and Jen Wayner, a bunch of people in Phoenix have decided we're going to do this. And the more of us that use this, the better. So we've got a truly competitive advantage that's easy to use and that shows all the properties before everyone else can see them. It's a fantastic resource, really easy to use, and it's free. And I've created a post that I'll share on how we use off-market properties to differentiate ourselves. I call this the commission lawsuit kryptonite. So this is the way we beat it, which is we show that we have properties no one else has. And then in this video, about a third of the way through, I do a full-blown tutorial on Zenlist, how to list your properties, how to create searches, how to get notifications, all that stuff to make it really, really easy for you guys to get going on Zenlist, because it's a big mission of ours right now to get as many people as possible at EXP using Zenlist. And it's a truly competitive advantage because even though, let's say, Keller Williams has tons and tons of agents all over the place, they have a lot of different brokerages. So Keller Williams might have 10 different brokerages in Arizona. EXP is one brokerage. So we're allowed to share with everyone globally. And that's a truly unique competitive advantage that nobody else has.
Let's dig into that competitive advantage a little bit further, you and Leo, both of you, because everyone might not fully understand that. Like, wait, can't anyone at any brokerage do that? So like, why is it a distinct opportunity for EXP at its brokerage size? Can we let's go a little deeper there.
Go ahead, Leo. I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so let me address a couple of things. So clear cooperation and compensation is the rule that governs what we put in the MLS. And intra-office is the operating word, intra-office, right? So to John's point, KW could have 10 offices and it's KW New Millennium or KW Sunshine Properties. Those are actually independent offices. We are one company. And the reason I was obsessed with getting this off the ground 12 months ago is because we're in a low inventory environment, and I truly wanted you guys to have the tools to meet all the sellers, right? Like the best case that I'm seeing across the country is you have a landlord who's got 11 months left on the lease, and they can't actually enter that into the MLS. Like according to the rules, it's not accessible within 24 hours. There's no photos. There's all the rules of, because, you know, I want to say, since we're talking about it, putting a property on the MLS is the highest form of marketing, the most eyeballs, the best price. But there are real use cases every day where the seller is not a fit for the MLS, and we just needed to have one more tool for you guys. But I'll say this, there are coming changes to how we operate this as I'm reading through all this, and there'll be tweaks, but it's actually going to get better. It's going to get stronger. And again, we are uniquely positioned to do that. But I'm excited. Again, the name of the game here is understand. You know, Dan, you opened it up with a lot of emotions from the people in the other chats. The reality is, you know, stuff happens and you get to choose how you react to it. And if you can separate the emotion and just know that it is what it is, you can find the opportunity there. And this is one of them. So again, our number one goal is to be 100% compliant to the rules and regulations of every market we operate in. But we also want to give you the tools to deliver the most value you can for your customers. Because look, you guys hear me say it all the time. We sell more homes and service more families than anyone. And I'm not talking by a little bit. Like number 2 is 40% smaller than us. Number 3 is double, right? We are twice as big as number 3. And number 4, we're like 10 times bigger, right? And that's not just to brag that we sell more homes. We serve more families than anyone else in this country. And that's what you guys need to remember.
I saw some people questions. So Zenlist, you don't need the paid one; it's free. In the video, I explain the differences. There is an upgraded version that I don't use, Kyle doesn't use. We explain our strategy for why the free one we think is actually better.
So I can explain both really well there for you. So I don't use the word free. Nothing in life is free. It's included, right? any interaction or transaction in my life, I still haven't found free. Someone's charging me for that at some point. But so it's part of our value proposition. It's included in the $85 and you don't have to spend more money, which is the clear distinction. The included version is all EXP inventory. It's the off market. It's the coming soon inside of our Valve feed. So Kendall knows what I'm talking about. So IDX is the feed that goes to public facing portals. Valve feed is the ones that go intra office and broker. So coming soon is different than off market, right? Just so we're clear. A coming soon does not get syndicated to Zillow and Redfin and everyone else. It sits in that purgatory of coming soon, which again, by market, some markets are 48 hours, 24 hours, some are 2 weeks or a month. So ZenList displays all EXP. That's why it's called EXP exclusives, because it shows all of the different types of inventory we control. So off market, truly off market. Secondly, the second part is coming soons. And then the third part is active inventory. And we're going to be displaying eventually in the whole globe.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Really, really good.
All right, let's wrap it up, Dan. Let's respect everybody's time.
Wrap it up. I'll give a closing thought. Remember, the seller can pay commissions. There's a comment in there like, hey, what if someone has to choose between paying commission or paying or getting their dream home? Guys, the seller can pay. It's just paid differently, and it is certainly not advertised in the MLS. And we are going to be with you every step of the way. This is like 72 hours later. And look at what Leo and his team have done on a corporate level for us at EXP, what we're all going to do for you as just, having the privilege of being trusted to the time you give us. And we take it seriously. This is a big step up moment. And you can bet that us plus like hundreds of other leaders at EXP are going to do it right alongside you.
Cool. Last thing I want to leave you guys with is just a very simple quote from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It's the one most responsive to change. And there is change right now, and change freaks a lot of freaking people out. It's why there was 40,000+ people on Leo's, company YouTube. It's why there's been 4,000 people on here almost this entire live stream. There is change happening. Change creates opportunity. Take advantage of this. This is a blessing. It is a huge opportunity. And those that adapt to this change are going to thrive. Guys, thank you all so much for coming together today. It's an amazing opportunity to just have so many cool voices from within the company all coming together to create one big fire. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.